In this video, we'll talk about some key economic concepts that come very often in our discussions. So the first thing we want to talk about is economic versus free goods. What are economic goods? Well, economic goods are those goods that require scarce resources to be sacrificed in order for them to be produced. So basically, when you look at any good which has a price, it will be called an economic good because the resources that are used to produce that good are scarce to begin with. This also means any economic good will have what we call an opportunity cost. Why? Because this means whenever we decide to buy, let's say, pineapples, we may be sacrificing consumption of something else, let's say bananas. So there is always an opportunity cost for economic good because there's a price or scarce resources used to produce them. On the other hand, when we look at free goods, these are the goods that have zero opportunity cost. For example, the oxygen we breathe, the seawater, all of this are examples where there's no price for the good. Why? Because the resources that are used to make them are scarce and therefore are unlimited in supply. So when it comes to economic goods, there is an opportunity cost and therefore there is a price for them. While when it comes to the free goods, there is no opportunity cost, or zero opportunity cost, and therefore no price for them. Another important distinction that we need to create is the distinction between micro versus macroeconomics. Microeconomics is simply concerned with the individual parts of the economy. When you look at microeconomics, we are looking at basically individual market, we're looking at individual consumers, we're looking at somehow concerns which are related to individuals of the economy. It is concerned with, for example, demand and supply of a good, or for example, government interventions that are affecting individuals in terms of individual market, individual consumer, or individual firm. On the other hand, when we look at macroeconomics, we're looking at a bigger lens. We're looking at the whole economy, and suddenly we are now aggregating all the various variables that we looked at. For example, price is aggregated to find price level of the economy. Similarly, employment and unemployment of each, for example, industry is aggregated to find unemployment. Similarly, when we look at output, we look at economic growth of the economy. When we look at trade, we look at the whole economy's trade and therefore find out something that's an aggregate like balance of payment. So the idea behind microeconomics versus macroeconomics is this, that in macroeconomics, we zoom out of the individual markets and firm and look at what is going on in the whole country. The next concept we want to talk about is something called positive versus normative economics. What is positive economics? Well, positive economics is simply economics that is built on positive statements. And what are positive statements? Well, these are the statements that can be proven right and wrong. And how can you prove positive statements right and wrong? Well, we can do that because they are the statements that can be tested against factual data, and hence they can be proven right and wrong. For example, if I say my house from the school where I work is 10 kilometers away. Now this is a positive statement because I can measure the distance and I can figure out whether it is 10 kilometers away or more than 10 kilometers away or less than 10 kilometers away. So the way I can prove this right and wrong is through data. On the other hand, when you look at normative economics is based on what we call normative statements. These are statements that are value judgment or somebody's opinion, or statements that cannot be proven right and wrong. For example, if I say I like burgers more than pizzas, now this is my preference. Can I prove it right and wrong? And the answer is no. Or can you prove it right and wrong? And the answer is no. Why? Because this is somebody's value judgment or somebody's preferences. Examples which are based on normative statements could be, like inflation is rising too fast or income distribution is not fair. Now, why is it a normative statement? Because these are somebody's sort of opinions, and somebody saying that I feel income distribution is unfair, while somebody else may say no, it's fair. And so you can't prove it right and wrong. On the other hand, positive statements, because you can prove them right and wrong, they turn out to be the basis of economics that we want to build and that we want to talk about. Now, key phrases when it comes to normative statements that we need to figure out is something like ought to be, should be, too much, too little. All of these mean that there is somebody's value judgment or opinion is involved. So for example, I say wages are distributed unfairly, this is a normative statement. Or, for example, if I say that you should not increase prices, again, this is somebody's opinion. Now, if on the other hand I say, a minimum wage policy will increase unemployment in the economy, now this is a statement that I can actually prove through data whether minimum wage is increasing unemployment or not, and therefore this becomes what we call a positive statement. So positive statements are all those statements which are proven right and wrong through data, and they could be wrong statements as well, while normative are value judgments which cannot be proven right and wrong because they are somebody's opinion or value judgment.
Quick pause. If you're finding value in this explanation, there's so much more to discover. At Alt Academy, we break down every A-level concept with the same level of clarity. Now, let's continue.
The next concept we want to talk about is something called capital versus consumer goods. What are capital goods? Well, capital goods are those goods which are basically bought to produce consumer goods in the future. For example, a good example could be machinery or, for example, equipment, which is basically bought to produce consumer goods, and they're not bought for final consumption. Like a burger is bought for final consumption, or an Xbox is bought for final consumption because you're not using it to make more output in the future. So, what are consumer goods? Consumer goods are defined as those goods which are bought for final consumption, like washing machines, your Xbox, burgers. And between your consumer goods, we actually distinguish between non durable consumer goods versus durable consumer goods. Non-durable consumer goods are those goods which are simply consumed immediately. For example, food items are non-durable goods which are consumed right away. On the other hand, when it comes to durable goods are not consumed immediately. A good example of that could be television or a car that is bought with an idea to consume it for many years. And sometimes that's why we, for durable goods, end up taking them on a lease or for from a loan, because we notice that we will be using this asset for a long time for our consumption. The last concept we would like to talk about is something called Cetersis Parabas. Now, what is Cetersis Parabas? Cetersis Parabas simply means holding everything else constant or holding all other variables constant. Now, in economics, the term is used to indicate the effect of one economic variable, for example, price, on another economic variable, for example, quantity. Now, if the price goes up, we say sometimes that the quantity demanded or quantity bought should go down because it becomes expensive for people to buy. But at the same time, what if I tell you this, that the price is going up, but the quality of a good is also going up? Now, do you think then the quantity will go down if I say price is going up because the quality is going up, and that's why quantity is going down? The answer will be no, because now that you add another variable to the equation, we might not see this inverse relationship to exist. So, in order to look at how price is affecting quantity alone, we need to ignore all other variables, like, for example, quality, weather, preferences of consumer, and so on. So keeping everything else constant, which means keeping everything else ceteris paribus, we will able to figure out how price is affecting quantity of a good. Similarly, if I want to look at how quality is affecting quantity of a good, higher quality would actually lead to higher quantity, right? Because when the quality of a good goes up and consumers realize that, they may buy more of that good. So if I only want to look at quality's effect on quantity, I need to ignore prices and all other things in order to see the effect of one variable on the other in a very clean manner. We will be using Cetersis Parabas a lot when we come to demand and supply chapter, because in the demand and supply chapter, we are looking at how various variables, like, for example, price, quality, weather, advertising, and all of these factors affects the consumption or production of a good, and therefore we need to keep the effect of each variable separate, or isolate them, or keeping everything else ceteris paribus, so that we can see how one variable is affecting the other variable.
If you found that helpful, imagine what you could achieve with the full economics course. Over 60,000 students have used Alt Academy to transform their A-levels journey. Don't wait and take the first step today.